Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is the fourth lecture of African literature for masters, and the course code is ENGL 4117. I'm Shahzadi Samra, and I hope you all are good, and your families as well. And I pray and I wish you good health and long life. Okay, so we were discussing about the Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, and today we are discussing the same, the Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, the writer in whose company the prison walls fell down. This is what Nelson Mandela said about Chinua Achebe, the strong writer. So today the topic is symbolism. Symbolism is things fall apart. As the things fall apart, as the modern and the post falls in the category of post-colonial literature. So symbolism is one of the techniques, modernist techniques that Chinua Achebe used in his work. So before telling you about the symbols in the work, I would like you to know about symbolism, that what is symbolism exactly. So the symbolism is an literary and artistic movement which was originated by the French poets in late 19th century, and the reason for the origin of the symbolism was the writers were not given freedom of expression. So especially they in the writing and in the art, any kind of art form, whether it is a piece of poetry, novel, drama, or sketch, painting, anything. So the French poets, they started this movement so that they can get freedom of expression with varying degrees. So it spread to painting from poetry, it spread to painting, then theater, and it influenced the literatures of 20th century, especially the European and the American literatures. So what it does, it gives the margin of expression of individual emotional experience. So through highly symbolized language, means by using the different symbols, by using different subtle and highly organized symbol, one can express their emotional experience in anything, in any piece of art. So symbolism, it can be an object, a person, a situation, any event or action that have a deeper meaning in context. So the writers, they started using the symbolism, some of the modernist writers, they started using the symbolism to give the meaning to their works, or to make their works more clear, and for create a deeper meaning or deeper understanding for the readers. So this is a bit about symbolism, and now move on towards the symbolism in Things Fall Apart. There are many symbols. As I told you that the African literature, it is rich with the traditions and norms, and they have rich civilization. So there are many symbols, there are many things that Achebe depicted in this work, which which increases our knowledge, or our understanding about the African literature by reading the work of Things Fall Apart. He has used different symbols, he has used different metaphors to clear out the things, or to clear out the meaning for the readers from all over the universe. That's why he has written it in English, because apart from the African people, he wanted the non-African people to read this work. And I told you that he wrote this work in order to clear the stereotypes about the Africans, and it was written in response to the Heart of Darkness, written by Joseph Conrad. So the symbols in this novel are yams, agriculture, you may say, and koala nuts. They both fall in the category of agriculture. Then folk tales, fire, mother of spirits, a conco, the character of the protagonist of the novel, Novoi's personality, another protagonist, another character, Noah's adoption of a new name, then weather, then Locust invasion, and a Conco's death. These are the major symbols in the novel. So I didn't give any elaboration in separate slides. So I would start with the yams. So yams, basically the importance of agriculture is quite quite prominent in the work, and agriculture is basically associated with the masculinity. In this novel, Achebe has associated, not Achebe, basically in African culture, they associate agriculture with the masculinity. And yams, it is yams, koala nuts, palm wine, these are the crops they associate with the masculinity usually. And yams, or they use yams, koala nuts, palm wine in their celebration every time whenever there is a gathering. And yam, it is like a crop that is usually or commonly known grown by the men. And raising of this crop, basically it requires intensive labor, and the work ethics of a man can be measured by the portion of the field and harvest obtained. So in the African setup, the sole objective of growing yams is to acquire wealth and feed the family. The yams, basically these crops, only the hard working men they could handle these crops. And they symbolize a man's ability to provide or to feed his family, and responsible man. So in the novel, a man who had bulk yams was portrayed as not a failure like Yunoka. He had a large barn full of yams. So like Nwakibi, he refuses to give the young man yams, citing that they would dump them on earth rather than taking care of them as a man would do for his family to flourish. Yams are very precious and would only belong to hardworking individuals. That is why Nwakbi, he just denied to give his yams to any young man. They just treated yams as their offspring, that a man who can protect his family, or who can take care of his family, he can take care of the yams. So the central position of the yam highlights the defining traits of the tribe. The symbolic meaning is illustrated by its use as a source of satisfaction, and due to the intensive effort needed in cultivating it, bulk harvest presents yearly achievement gained from the nature. So yam's image is brought out as necessity of the culture, basically. So in the culture, because the yams is relevant to the masculinity, and if there is masculinity in a man, then he is able to grow the yams crop, and he can protect his family, and he can gain respect in the society. So it is also relevant to the respect. So the next one is the folk tales. As we already know that the African literature, it was it began with the folk tales, with the orature and the oral tradition. So the folk tales, and in the novel, Azinma's mother, she used to tell her stories or folk tales, and Noah's mother used to tell him stories about different things, and Akonko also used to tell stories, Noai, of about the how to be masculine, how to to protect family and something like that. Sorry about that notification. So, according to Conco, most of the folk tales in the novel featuring small animals symbolize women behavior. For example, in the Aquife's tale that talks about the birds and the tortoise who were invited for a feast in the park in the sky, and when there was famine, and the bird invited the tortoise, and they gave them feather as well, so that they can fly to the sky. So this blocked out the third eye, since he had no wings to fly, and the birds were aware of his ungratefulness and cunning behavior, thus couldn't help him out. So the tortoise was starving and had to sweet talk the birds to nurture his hunger. In their journey, the tortoise claims of a custom that demands them to take new names through the idea was to acquire the most respectable position. So what he does, since the women were all inferior, they gave in, and the cunning tortoise ended up feasting on the best food, leaving leftovers for the birds. So the birds are known as the weaker, and they represent the women, while the tortoise is the cunning, it represents the manliness. So through the animal imagery, Achiba depicts the indecisive character of women, and also provides the useful morals in the society. So by seeing this, we can say that they already had morals. The African people, they already had morals, they already had traditions, they already had civilization. So the next one is fire. Uh, fire, what it does? It gives heat to the point that it burns. Fire is associated with the term destruction and destructive something. So in this work, Achipe associated Akonko's character, and he used the term drumming flame for the Akonko. Like, Akonko is compared to the fire by other characters and the narrator, and he is branded roaming flame in the town. And according to him, fire is a symbol of strength. And while seated in his hut after a call with his son Navoy, Akonko started on a log fire, and felt a strong feeling to rise. So he took up his machete and cleared the Christians who Navoy was associating with. And whenever Akonko would gaze at the flame, a wild feeling of strength would fill his body. So this is how the fire is associated with the character of a Conco, as a Conco was aggressive and fire is aggressive. If it spreads, you cannot control it. So a Conco was like, he was the man of his own actions and his own desires. No one was able to stop him, because he was the person who was always afraid of appearing weak. And his father, Yunoka, Konko's father, he was like nightmare to a Conco. So he has brought or he just built up some kind of things in his own character that make him the roaming flame, a flame that is moving from here from one place to another and burning things with itself as well. So the mother of spirits next is, so it is basically the personification, and so the mother of spirits can be viewed as the personification by the clan of Eumofia and the mother of Igwogo. At this juncture, the style of life of Eumofia is deeply disregarded, and the damage committed is irreparable. And the mother of spirits mourns her son's death loudly after the unmasking night. So if you have read the text of this novel, you may know about it, and I strongly recommend you to read the text. So the comparison between the clan and the mother of spirit is drawn by the Achibe, and it is like mentioned in the work as it seemed as if the very soul of the clan wept for the great evil that was coming its own death. So the great evil was the death of the clan. So and that might represent the change. So it is imperative that the mother of spirit doesn't revenge her son's death, but rather mourns and weeps. So the people of Eumofia would not avenge for crimes committed against them. So that is the white people, and that was coming upon them, and it was like that the mother of the clan, it's crying and it's weeping and mourning or lamenting about this death, and she didn't avenge her son. Her son is the Eumofia and the other clans as well. So the clans member, they didn't avenge their this, and that is why it says that the mother of spirits didn't avenge her son. So the next is the Akonko. Akonko as a character, it does represent many things in itself. Like there are many other many other themes that are associated, many other symbols that are associated with the character of a Conco, only with the character of a Conco, like the masculinity, like the fire, the aggression, the resistance against change. So he was many things. And when analyzing the things fall apart, a Conco should be mentioned as well, because he symbolizes the masculinity, and a character deeply opposed to the Christian belief of love. And because he was always carrying anger or the feelings of anger within him, and he never did showed love or expressed love. as for him it was a sign of weakness. So the spirit of African people is represented collectively by his personality, and his the like his personality means that he was the only character who was following every tradition and who was making up to the level of the masculinity, and he was sustaining his reputation and strength as well. Just like the Igbos, he is very independent and strong person. And Weinstock and Ramadan pointed out that these are the critics, and they said about the Akonko, like Akonko is consistently associated with masculinity, and he virtually always mistrusts, opposes, and attacks anything feminine or linked with femininity. So Christianity embodies and stresses the qualities a Conco considers to be womanish, such as love, affection, mercy, and he characteristically evaluates the missionaries as a lot of effeminate men clucking with old hands. So this is the comment of Ramadan and Wenstock about the Akonko and how he viewed the white man, and how he was opposing the concept of white men about love, mercy, and affection. And according to him, as I told you, that according to him these emotions were feminine for him, and if he didn't show these emotions because he thought he would appear or he would be known as weak. So the next is the kola nuts. Kola nuts are, as I told you, that kola nuts are they are also associated with the what I was agriculture. And whenever there was a any celebration, whenever there was any event, they would offer kola nuts to their guests. So the kola nuts are the symbol of happiness, pleasure, and hospitality in the African culture. And with the arrival of the Europeans, the village agriculture, Emofians agriculture tradition comes into conflict with the newcomers' industrial technology. Such as the iron horse, they named it the bicycle, which the villagers tie to a tree. And the Europeans are able to change the landscape of the community through their industrial advantage. So the colonization of Africa represents the power of industry over agriculture, and the arrival of the Europeans marks the beginning of the end of African agricultural society, as Akonko understood and was personified by him. So the next one is Noy's personality. So Nomoy is another character in the son of Akonko, and he is not a kind of very strong character in the novel. So according as Akonko was always worrying about his son, that how would he how would he survive, and he didn't consider him as much of the masculine person. So Noah's personality was basically the symbol of Christianity. His father fought against feminine behavior, and his conversion to Christianity was to strengthen the symbol created by the Achibe. So because Nomoy wasn't afraid of expressing affection or love, and being indifferent in the feminine qualities. So and Christianity, when the Europeans came, they also taught them the same things, and while Akonko, he considered these things womanish in the negative term. meaning. So the Concourse family was his joy and pride, while Noah's conversion to Christianity was the last pain he could endure. And due to his son's rejection of his lifestyle, the only option was to cease living. So this thing, the noise conveyan also created a conflict between a Concourse personality. And why did Noy converted into Christianity? The reason was that there were many things, there were many traditions in the African culture that Noy was unable to understand those things. And there was always confusion or question in his mind. There is always weakness in his mind. The things were not clear, and the things he was opposed to, or the questions that was in his mind, floating in his mind. The Christianity, when the Europeans came, Christianity somehow was able to able to sorry, I'm sorry about that. So somehow somehow the Christianity, he was able to answer all those questions, and to bring his mind a peace. That's why he, and the second reason for convenience was a Concourse attitude or a Concourse behavior. So the next is the Noah's adoption of a new name. When he converted into Christianity, he also changed his name. His decision to take up a name Isaac, with the importance it carried, confirms and the reason, and it confirms his loyalty to the Christianity religion. Though the exact name that he picks implies significance beyond the immediate sense of personal salvation. It brings out the memories of the Bible story of Abraham. So, where an animal was substituted for his son Isaac, and adoption of this name by Noah portrays the complete meaning of his conversion, which was the critical sign of liberation from the limitation of the family creation. So when he converted, and he also changed his name, in although he could go on with the Noah, but he didn't want to be limitized, he didn't want to be limited because of his name, or that's why he also changed his name. And he all and while changing name, while changing religion, it means he was giving himself a new identity which he always craved, and a new, sense of belonging which he always wanted from his father, but Conco wasn't appreciative of it. And Nomoy was more of a, more like Yunoka, and Conco was afraid that he would be a failure in his life. So the next one is the weather. Weather takes up a crucial role in the lives of Nigerian, especially the Igbos. The availability of rain, its unavailability, these things illustrate that the tribe was dependent on the weather for their survival. And you may have also seen such kind of condition in the text. So the weather limits the extent to which their crops grow, and the flow of the rivers, which in turn influence their water and food supply. On sunny days, the sun is utilized by the plants, and in warming up things, nevertheless, the excess rain or the sun is likely to cause damage. There whether not only in African culture, but it overall have an impact on every culture, on every nation, because the crops, the agriculture, it is totally dependent on the weather. Although these days we have technology and advanced agriculture, so it doesn't affect as much as it could, or as it was affecting in that period. And the Africans, they were totally illiterate, and they didn't have any literacy about agriculture, but they had the knowledge with them was of their ancestors, and they were utilizing that knowledge, and they were utilizing those stories or experience from generation to generation. So that is how they were totally dependent on the weather. And if weather wasn't favorable for them, they didn't know how to survive, they didn't know how to save their crops, how to cope up with that. So they were totally dependent on that. Locust invasion. Invasion by locust symbolizes a grand attack with the devastating destruction. Obviously, if you remember the lesson from your 11th or 12th grade, the about that was about locust. I forgot the name of the lesson, but in that lesson, it was described how it destroyed everything and every single piece of crop, every bit of the crop. And because of that, the famine can come, or it is the cause of famine. So, two important events that are considered to establish the locust link in the text. At first, a fairly small swarm came, implying that they were the harbingers sent to survey the land. According to in the text, he has written at this. He pointed out the first arrival of the whites and others on the way, and the link of events was done deliberately. And as the locust invasion can be the invasion of the whites. First, just there were harbingers, like some people came. Like Mr. Brown and other missionaries, and later on Reverend James Smith, they came. He came with a force, a district commissioner, and everyone came there. And this was, symbolizing the basically the arrival of white people, Europeans, and the destruction caused by the locust. It was also depicting the arrival of the destruction by the Europeans. But locust was basic not as such a destruction for the Europeans. They also enjoyed the locust season as well. They used to eat it. The cognition gulf is linked up by the myth of locust through the establishment of the unknown. So people were not aware of insects, through though it was the myth behind them and the danger of economic failure. So Achebe illustrates the locust that invaded the village using allegorically phrases that foreshadowed the coming of the white men in African land. So they intended to exploit all the resources of the Igbo tribe because Igbo consumed locust. It shows that they are not offensive. So in the same way, who were individuals who were stimulated to Christianity overlooked negative impacts, and the white people's culture would impact their lifestyle. The language used by Chibe in describing the locust invasion depicts their symbolic reputation. So the use of repetitive style draws emphasis on the pervasive presence of locust, and a hint in the manner in which the white settlers would occupy Igbo's land by surprise. So it is noted that the insects were too heavy, and that was the reason they broke the branches of tree. So this was a symbol of how the traditions and the culture of the Igbo would fracture on the attack by the colonialism as well as white settlement. So there is a similarity. I guess you can see the similarity between both invasions, and the symbolic or allegorical depiction of the things. And the last one is okay, back to the locust invasion. And wherever they sit locust, they are in the huge, they come in the swarms in the form of a storm. And wherever they sit, that thing gets destroyed. And even if they sit on the branches, because of the weight of the locust, the branches of the trees that broke, and the breakage, the destruction, basically it was depicting, Achiba was depicting the forthcoming destruction and the breakage of the African people. So the next one is a Conco's death. A Conco's death is a heroic death that is analogous to a warrior who is attached to his people. And this also symbolizes the catastrophic demise that great people face. So this is because committing suicide is regarded as abomination contrary to the earth, and thus should not be buried by the clansmen. So at Concourse, when the district commissioner came, it was the next day when he came to arrest a Conco, and when he came for arrest, and the people, clans people, they brought him to the towards the body of hanging body of a Conco. And it was almost and you can imagine that how time may have passed by, and still his body was hanging in there, and they didn't touched his body because it was a sin in their clan, or and it was curse for the earth. If a person commits suicide, and it means he is just disrespecting the earth. So, but in the right of African style, a concourse that could not be considered as heroic. That is why it wasn't considered heroic. Rather, it can only be seen as a shameful death. Unable to deal with his failure, and he acts in the way that leads to his death, and he is one who should be blamed for this. The irritating final words of Birka cast to the district commissioner holds certain ambiguity with the Igbo's point of view. Like in the memory of heroism and shameful act of killing himself, from the novel, he was portrayed as the greatest man in Umofia and was forced to commit suicide and buried in disrespectful manner. So or everything that was happening, it was just affecting the Conco, or to the every bit of his soul or body. There was struggle going on in the Conco's mind, in Conco's body. He was just struggling, he was resisting many things at the same time, and he was trying to save many things at the same. Although he was trying his good, but it may also be, it is also a negative attribute as well. He was not accepting change, he was not being flexible, and when you don't when you don't be flexible, and you just break, someone can break you very easily. In fact, when you are flexible, if a person, if anyone tries to break you, you won't be broken, rather you will bend in that way, in that shape. So a Conco was the inflexible or unflexible person. That is why all the circumstances that broke him, and it ultimately led to his death. And the other perception is a Conco's death is also the sign of resistance in the positive way. Means he didn't accept the Christianity, and rather he favored to take his own life instead of converting it to Christianity and accepting any domination. So to conclude, we can say that the things fall apart symbolism as shows that this is a thrilling novel, uses a symbolic literature style to demonstrate the credo of Africa's cultural erosion.
by embracing the Western culture. So most of the Africans were not ready to give in to the white man's way of life, and as such, for example, the Conco, so the Conco would rather cease living than adopt the white man's way of life. So the colonization plays a more prominent role in society, and the culture takes up a central role, and the symbolic events and characters are used to help the reader have a deeper understanding of the society. So I guess you understood everything, and if you have any queries, let me know. So in the next lecture, we'll discuss about the conflicts in the Things Fall Apart in this novel. There are many conflicts that are shown by Chinua Achebe in his work, Things Fall Apart. So in the next, inshallah, we'll discuss that. For now, uh, thank you so much. Take care and stay blessed.